It was a beautiful morning, so of course I had the windows down, completely forgetting the boat I have on top of my truck collects water when it rains. So not the best way to start the morning by flooding the cab of the truck. Roads between Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower. Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower are both located in the Black Hills of South Dakota rugged and remote region. The roads connecting these locations are primarily Forest Service roads, often unpaved and narrow. Forest Service Road 117, also known as Crook Mountain Road, is a notable route that passes near Crooks Tower. Additionally, several smaller service roads or trails provide access to both peaks, but these can be rough, particularly in bad weather. Roads in this area are often used by hikers, hunters, and off-road vehicle enthusiasts, with conditions ranging from gravel roads to rugged off-road trails. The roads in this region have evolved alongside the Black Hills development, which began with early Native American use, followed by miners, loggers, and settlers in the late 19th century. Initially, paths were little more than animal trails used by the Lakota Sioux, who lived in and traversed the region. Following the discovery of gold in the Black Hills in 1874, during Custer's Black Hills expedition, the U.S. government began to establish roads to facilitate mining operations and settlement. This region, known for its rich mining history, dates to the late 1800s. The mining roads between these areas were originally constructed to support the extraction of gold and other valuable minerals. These roads were vital for connecting remote mining claims and settlements during the region's mining boom. Today, these old mining roads have taken on a new life as recreational trails. The Forest Service maintains many of them for public use, and they are popular among off-road enthusiasts. The remnants of old mining equipment, shafts, and tailings can still be seen along some of these trails, giving visitors a glimpse into the region's rich mining heritage. The roads also provide access to some of the more remote and scenic areas of the Black Hills, including rugged peaks, dense forests, and open meadows. The areas surrounding Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower, located in the northern Black Hills of South Dakota, were part of a broader network of mining activities during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Although not as famous or as heavily mined as areas like lead or deadwood, this region saw significant prospecting and small-scale mining operations, mainly focused on gold and silver. The Black Hills gold rush of the late 19th century, starting in 1876, played a major role in the development of roads around Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower. The discovery of gold and other minerals in the region led to a surge of prospectors, and primitive roads were constructed to allow access to mining claims, especially around areas like lead and deadwood, which are close to Whitetail Peak. Many of the existing roads in the area were first established as wagon trails used to haul ore from the mines to processing centers. As mining expanded, so did the network of trails that crisscrossed the region, some of which evolved into modern-day Forest Service roads. Logging roads. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the logging industry had taken off in the Black Hills. The dense pine forests, especially near Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower, were valuable for timber production. Logging companies built additional roads to transport timber out of the hills. These logging roads were often built with minimal engineering, following the natural contours of the land, resulting in narrow, winding, and sometimes treacherous paths. After the establishment of the Black Hills National Forest in 1897, the federal government began managing the land, and many of the roads were improved to allow for fire management, forest management, and public access. The U.S. Forest Service assumed responsibility for many of the old mining and logging roads, and began maintaining them for recreational purposes, though some remain rough and primitive, reflecting their origins. With the rise of recreational off-road driving in the 20th century, many of these historic roads saw a new life. Off-roading became popular, and the Forest Service maintained some roads specifically for this purpose, allowing for the exploration of rugged areas that had once been the domain of miners and loggers. In summary, the roads near Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower have a rich history shaped by the early economic activities of mining and logging. Today, they serve as a testament to the region's past and offer access for recreational users seeking to explore the Black Hills' remote beauty. Mining history. The Black Hills Gold Rush began in 1874 when an expedition led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer discovered gold in French Creek, near present-day Custer, South Dakota. This discovery attracted thousands of prospectors to the area, despite the fact that the Black Hills was part of the Great Sioux Reservation under the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. This rush led to the creation of mining towns like Deadwood and Lead, which became epicenters of mining activity. The northern Black Hills, including areas around Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower, were significant for their placer and hard rock gold mining. Homestake Mine in Lead, which opened in 1876, became one of the largest and longest operating gold mines in the world. While Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower did not host mines as large as Homestake, there were many smaller claims and operations throughout the area. Silver, tin, and other minerals were also mined in addition to gold. Whitetail Peak, standing at about 6,900 feet, is located in an area known for its rugged terrain and mineral-rich geology. Gold was the primary target of prospectors in the late 1800s, but silver, tin, copper, and other minerals were also explored. Many of the operations around Whitetail Peak were small, often consisting of individual miners or small groups working claims. These miners employed placer mining techniques initially, which involved panning and slicing in stream beds to extract gold. Once the easily accessible placer deposits were exhausted, prospectors moved to hard rock mining, digging into the mountainsides to extract ore from veins of quartz and other gold-bearing rock. This more labor-intensive process required the construction of adits, horizontal mine shafts, and small mills to crush the ore and extract the gold. The mining in this region was challenging due to the remote location and the difficulty of transporting ore to larger processing facilities. The rugged roads and the harsh winter weather of the Black Hills further complicated mining efforts. As a result, many claims were abandoned, and only the most persistent or well-capitalized mining operations survived for any length of time. Crooks Tower, one of the highest points in the Black Hills at around 7,137 feet, was also an area of interest for mining, though not as heavily mined as some other Black Hills locations. The geology around Crooks Tower includes various igneous and metamorphic rocks, some of which contain precious metals. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many small claims were staked around Crooks Tower by prospectors searching for gold and silver veins. Like in the area surrounding Whitetail Peak, many of these claims were short-lived, as the quantity and quality of ore varied widely. Some claims turned out to be speculative and failed to yield significant returns, while others produced enough to sustain small mining operations for a few years. In addition to gold, silver was an important mineral extracted around Crooks Tower. During the 1880s and 1890s, the value of silver surged, prompting an increased interest in mining this metal. However, the silver market's volatility and the declining prices toward the end of the 19th century resulted in many silver mines closing. Today, evidence of mining activities can still be seen around Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower. These areas are dotted with abandoned mine shafts, tailings piles, waste rock from mining, and old mining roads. Some of these roads have been preserved and are now used as recreational trails for off-roading, hiking, and ATV riding. Many of the mine shafts and adits in this region are considered dangerous and have been closed off or marked to prevent accidents. However, some of the old mining infrastructure like foundations and equipment remnants remain, providing a glimpse into the hard life of early Black Hills miners. Though the mining operations around Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower were relatively small compared to the larger gold mining ventures in Lead and Deadwood, they contributed to the broader Black Hills mining economy. The gold and silver extracted from these hills helped fuel the early economic development of the region, bringing settlers, infrastructure, and ultimately statehood for South Dakota in 1889. While commercial mining in these areas is no longer active, the mining legacy remains an important part of the Black Hills history. The mining roads, ghost towns, and old claims tell the story of the gold rush era, when the promise of mineral riches drew countless prospectors to these rugged and remote hills. The Sioux, particularly the Lakota, have long opposed mining in the Black Hills. The Black Hills, including Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower, hold profound spiritual significance for the Sioux. Known as Paha Sapa, the Black Hills are considered sacred, a place where the Sioux believe their ancestors reside, and where their creation stories are centered. Mining, seen as a desecration of this sacred land, has been a source of conflict since gold was first discovered in the 1870s. For the Lakota Sioux, the Black Hills Paha Sapa were considered sacred and were integral to their cultural and spiritual life. The hills, including Crooks Tower and Whitetail Peak, were central to their creation stories, religious practices, and way of life. Various natural landmarks such as Bear Butte and Harney Peak, now called Black Elk Peak, were places of pilgrimage, prayer, and vision quests. The 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, signed between the U.S. government and the Lakota, had recognized the Black Hills as part of the Great Sioux Reservation, guaranteeing that the land would remain under Sioux control and prohibiting outside settlement without their consent. The Sioux were promised that they could live on the land undisturbed, with U.S. military forces to protect it from trespassers. However, this changed dramatically with the discovery of gold in the Black Hills by Lieutenant Colonel George Custer's 1874 expedition. Once news of the gold discovery spread, prospectors and settlers began pouring into the area, violating the terms of the treaty. Initially, the U.S. government tried to restrict these incursions, but the economic pressure from settlers seeking fortune, and the potential wealth to be gained from mining, made enforcement impossible. The Sioux fiercely opposed the invasion of miners and settlers, as they saw it as a violation of their treaty rights and a desecration of their sacred lands. They viewed the mining activities around Whitetail Peak, Crooks Tower, and other areas in the Black Hills not only as a threat to their land, but also as a profound spiritual affront. For the Lakota, the hills were the heart of everything that is, a place that should remain undisturbed by commercial activities. The influx of miners led to increased tensions between the Lakota and the U.S. government. Efforts to buy the Black Hills from the Sioux were rejected by their leaders, including Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, who refused to sell the sacred land regardless of the price. The U.S. government, unable to control the flow of settlers and miners, eventually abandoned its treaty obligations and declared war on the Lakota and other allied tribes in 1876. This conflict culminated in a series of battles, most famously the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, where Sioux and Cheyenne warriors led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse defeated Custer's 7th Cavalry. Despite this victory, The U.S. government ultimately forced the Sioux to cede the Black Hills through the Agreement of 1877, which officially took the land from them. The loss of the Black Hills was devastating for the Sioux, both materially and spiritually. While miners around Whitetail Peak, Crooks Tower, and other parts of the Black Hills sought to extract gold and other minerals, the Sioux were confined to reservations and faced immense hardship. The desecration of the sacred Black Hills added to the sense of betrayal and loss felt by the Sioux people. To this day, the Black Hills remain a point of contention between the Sioux and the U.S. government. The Sioux have never accepted the legality of the U.S. taking the Black Hills and have sought its return. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in United States v. Nation of Indians that the Black Hills were illegally taken and awarded financial compensation to the Sioux. However, the Sioux have refused the money, insisting that they want the land returned to their control rather than monetary compensation. Mining in the region is viewed as part of the historical exploitation of Sioux lands, and this legacy continues to fuel tensions today. Many Sioux oppose any mining or resource extraction in the Black Hills, particularly in areas of deep cultural and spiritual importance, such as Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower. The Black Hills National Forest, established in 1897, encompasses much of the sacred land of the Sioux, including Whitetail Peak and Crooks Tower. While the National Forest designation provides some protection from development and preserves the land for public use, it also represents a further loss of Sioux control over their traditional territory. Many Sioux view the management of the Black Hills as a continuation of the U.S. government's disregard for their treaties and cultural heritage. The land, while publicly accessible, is managed by a federal agency, not by the Sioux themselves. There is ongoing advocacy within the Sioux community for greater control over the Black Hills, including proposals to return portions of the National Forest to Sioux stewardship. For many Sioux, the Black Hills National Forest is a reminder of the sacred land that was taken from them. While some appreciate the preservation of the natural environment, there is a strong desire for a deeper recognition of the cultural and spiritual significance of the area, and a long-standing goal of reclaiming their ancestral land.